tonight. This textile, it's making a textile clothes. It's hard to find clothes that's made anywhere in the United States anymore. And if our leaders have their way, our leaders in this country, there won't be any textiles.
Well, I thought it's been a good protest. I think I'm a paranoid type person who feels like some of the destruction was probably agent provocateurs. Now, nobody agrees with me, but I know that so a lot of the press that we're getting is on violence instead of on the issues, and I think that one reason. I don't know how you protect yourself from it other than maybe educate the people to be willing to accept, like this guy said, well, Starbucks has stepped on a lot of the rest of the world, so if they've broken a lot of the rest of the world, so let some of their windows be broken. So, or the AFL said something about, well, the breaking of the McDonald windows deplorable, but that doesn't excuse how bad the WTO is. The WTO is still bad and should be put down.
What do you think of today? What's going on today up there? Do you think it's justified? The no protest zone?
Well, I was at one before we came down here where nobody was supposed to say anything. You know, you put a piece of tape over your mouth. Is that the one you're talking about?
Well,
after the raging
there are a
granite.
number going on up there, and they're actually, what I've heard is they're stopping people indiscriminately on the street and searching them, taking gas masks away from people, real violation of civil liberties. And I would feel that reaction to yesterday is pretty different. Do you think it's warranted at all?
No. It's a loss of our democratic rights to freedom of assemble and to protest. It reinforces my feeling I'd like to leave the country and go somewhere else. When I retire, I feel like I should go somewhere else and try and. But I guess we're in the belly of the beast. Maybe we need to try and make this country a better place so the rest of the world can have peace. I have a banner, you know, I made this, oh, that one fell down, but that's like 30 feet by 10 feet, that boycott USA Today, the people united will never be defeated. And yesterday I noticed when they had coverage of the downtown area on TV, they had a bunch of banners, you couldn't read any of them except the one that said social justice, but all the rest of them they would not focus on. They take a picture of the things far enough back and wouldn't zero in on what single banner said except for that one.
It puts corporations in a position similar to a monopoly. We've outlawed it here in the States, but what we're doing is we're actually making monopolies legal internationally. And we're not letting ourselves compete as workers on an international level. And it's necessary for us to have everyone on an equal plane to be able to compete. And for the people to actually have some kind of an opportunity to make a living wage. Well, I think quite simply this is step one. What you always try and do is work within the system and try and influence the people that are making the decisions. Hopefully we're doing that piece by piece in a peaceful method. And what we hope to do is we hope to avoid a position where all the people are suffering and they actually come to terms where they feel like they have to come up in arms. We want to avoid that. I'm kind of seeing it from two different sides. One is I'm disappointed in the effect that we're hoping to make in making an intelligent move towards the people, towards the delegates. But I can actually understand the young people in recognizing what's going on and what's happening in the United States even, and internationally. We're putting them in a position of deficit. They're recognizing that they don't have a lot of places to go. Some of the kids, they just decided, well, I heard them on the news, they didn't care. Well, I think in large part that has to do with the fact that they don't feel like they have anything to care about or move towards. And we're robbing them in a way. We need to work towards giving them something to look forward to.
Also is with us Kai Jong Wo from the independent Chinese labor movement struggling for the coalition we've been building will carry on day by day, year by year, decade by decade, until the kind of exploitation that's embodied in the WTO is brought to an end. Now before I get Anthony up here for one last song, I want to give some instructions to steelworkers on how we're supposed to go to our next...
How does WTO affect you in a way that has brought you here to protest them?
Well, more than affecting me, it affects the members of my union, which is building trades, and I'm with the International Brotherhood of Painters and Allied Trades, and one of the major issues is, of course, wages and living standards, but right up there, specifically for building trades, is the discussion that has been done on prefab construction being fabricated in other countries for, of course, slave wages, and then imported, and all the way down to the painting.
Okay, and your feelings on how the protest has gone so far?
As far as the AFL-CIO protesting has gone very well. In fact, yesterday, at the end of the march, we sent our marshals up to the non-AFL-CIO protest to pull our people out of there. The police cooperated with us. They informed us what was happening and gave us the opportunity to get our people out. And we got our people out and our signs. And so the media was pretty fair at explaining that it was clearly not an AFL-CIO protest. And however, my opinion on media coverage prior to the rally and march is that the news commentators are saying, well, goodness, we need trade. You know, why is everyone against the trade? And here they are, you know, the front faces of the media, you know, saying we need the trade, when the issue is not the trade, it's the conditions of the trade.
Tough day to fly.
Hey, can I ask you some questions?
Sure.
How do you feel about the labor march and the labor protest, and then the protest overall, the different groups? How do you feel it's playing out here in Seattle?
Well, I think that it brought a lot of attention to the issues of WTO, issues that aren't known to the general public, what the WTO is about and how it stands, how it ignores labor rights of individuals, how it ignores human rights, environmental rights. I think the whole demonstration, in all, has demonstrated to the world that, you know, these issues are out there and should be dealt with, and should be out in public, not behind closed doors that the WTO does.
How do you feel about how the protest is unfolding here in Seattle?
Best protest I've seen in Seattle ever.
Are you from here?
Yes.
Okay, and what are your feelings
About what?
about the protest?
It's great. Yesterday was the perfect way to let the world know that people are pissed off about it, and it's going to be covered in a lot of media sources all over the world. That's perfect, and I'm glad that people broke some windows about it, and that cops got out of control because it made better media. So the protest was a great success, and today also I feel a good feeling. It's better today. It's positive.
People were protesting from 9 o'clock in the morning peacefully all day long and getting tear gassed. Families running with like 8-year-old kids. None of that was on the media. I'm not surprised that by 9 o'clock at night people got really agitated, you know? I mean, eating tear gas all day like sucks. But the reality is that people looting weren't really that much a part of the protest. And in fact, they were actually a danger to us, the protesters too, because they were knocking people over. For every place there was a window broken, there was a group of protesters yelling non-violent protest. So what I don't understand is why the police didn't target those looters and get them out of there so we could finish doing what we were doing, you know? It didn't make any sense at all.
So you think today's action by the police is...
It's totally uncalled for. I mean, where's the real media coverage? There was 20,000 people, you know, at the labor rally for 3 hours, peacefully demonstrating. There was no media coverage there, no talk about issues. There's been teach-ins all week long, stuff at Benaroya Hall, Seattle Art Museum, the University of Washington, Third World Network. Vandana Shiva was here speaking 3 times. There's no media coverage of any of that. All you see is the police bombing like some out-of-control kids by 7 o'clock last night with tear gas.
At least they'll like associate World Trade not with just a bunch of contracts, but as real people that have real feelings about it, you know, whether it's a life and death stake. So we have to stay out here for the other people in the world that are going to die, you know.
And I mean, issues aren't that simple, that's the thing. There's not going to be any black and white decisions about the WTO from either side. That's why they need to be open for other people to go in, you know. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, you know.
Well, I have a lot of concerns about our civil rights because the city is called a state of an emergency, and so far I have not been able to find anyone in the media or the mayor's office who has a document with a list of these provisions that we're supposedly under at this point. And so it's very confusing for citizens who are going downtown just to shop or to go to clubs to know whether we're stepping over boundaries, what our rights are at this point. In other words, there's this disbursement order that they've supposedly put into effect, whereas if the police ask you to leave and you don't, they can arrest you, and this is in the no protest zone. There's also an order to make gas masks, the possession of, the selling, or the distribution of gas masks illegal in the city of Seattle right now, inside the city limits. It's like a $500 fine and 180 days in jail. And there's at least 2 other provisions that I know of that have to do with curfew that was put into effect last night from 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. And the fact that there are people arrested today over by the toy shop, FAO Schwartz I think it's called, and they weren't even protesting, they were just standing there, but they were all arrested basically for peaceably congregating, which in my estimation is a violation of First Amendment rights. We're supposed to be able to congregate peaceably to address the grievances against our government or the WTO or whatever, our government's involvement in the WTO. So I'm curious as a citizen, where is this document? I'd like to see what the provisions are so we all know what our rights are and where the boundaries have been made. And then I'd also like to ask the question, is this a violation of our civil rights as citizens? And I'm talking about innocent bystanders, media people, people who were shopping, who were arrested because they were told by the police that they had obstructed the police, because evidently they weren't asked, they didn't leave immediately when they were asked to leave. So I'm having this problem with this no protest zone, the no gas mask ordinance, because the media needs the gas mask. The citizens who were taking out their garbage on Capitol Hill last night, or who were trying to get out of downtown last night when the protests were happening, you know, we got gassed. I got gassed. I had a canister line 10 feet away from me, and I was just trying to get out of the area. And I'm saying, now, why can't reporters, media people, people who are innocent bystanders have gas masks? I mean, how can that be justified? I have a problem with that. So there are at least 4 provisions of this emergency order, which have been stated in press conferences by the mayor and by the chief of police. And yet I've never seen the document. I can't find anyone in the media who has a copy of it. And the mayor's office told me they didn't have any information at this time. I'm just questioning whether some of the things they're doing is really, good for democracy, because I think people still need to peaceably congregate. President Clinton said that in his speech today, that we need to be able to voice our opinions peacefully. And so I don't think that there's any reason when the so-called, head law enforcement officer of the country, states that's a policy. I think that the governor and the mayor should, listen a little bit and try to cooperate more with the protesters. The people who are protesting today are completely peaceful, okay, but they're still being arrested in huge numbers. 250 is the last estimate I heard. And there's so many people being arrested that they can't house them all at Sandpoint anymore. Now they're taking them to Boeing Field. And so this policy of mass arrest, I don't think is helping to defuse the situation, and it's causing the people who are peaceably protesting to suffer because of a few people yesterday, and the mayor and the governor They both agreed that there was a small number of people who caused those the property damage disturbances yesterday. There's a lot of protesters downtown actually helping to clean up today, you know, and the mayor mentioned that, and so did the governor, and I think that's really important. But I'm still concerned about our right to peacefully protest. And right now there's a civil disobedience activity going on at First United Methodist Church because there was a conference on women and democracy and the WTO. Their license, their permit to march was revoked this morning by the city. And it was because of this curfew and not because of the curfew, it's because of the no protest zone. So they are challenging that at the First United Methodist Church right now. And there's also marchers, you know, headed downtown, and I don't know where they're going. The parameters of the no protest zone have changed today at least twice. I've kept track of it. At 9:15 this morning it changed suddenly and it was larger again. So if the police or the mayor decide at some point to expand the no protest zone and people are caught unawares, they could possibly be arrested for absolutely no reason but being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's a concern. It's a concern for shoppers. It's a concern for citizens who live in the area. There are people who live in the area that is considered a no protest zone. And they are being told that if they are stopped and they do not have, quote, you know, legitimate business, whatever that means, that they can be arrested. That is the statement that went out from the mayor at the press conference early this morning. It was printed on CNN's webpage last night. So this is one of the provisions, okay? And I would like to know, you know, what are the people who live there supposed to do? I mean, is that legitimate business? Who decides what is legitimate business? If a person wants to go downtown for a peaceable protest in a no protest zone, is that prohibited? And I've noticed today that they've moved several times towards the perimeters and chased people away from the no protest zone and then followed them into the areas, you know, that supposedly should be okay areas to be in at this time. And I'm just concerned about who's making this decision of what is legitimate business. In other words, is it, you know, if you don't look right, if you're a protester, I mean, what is the definition of legitimate business? Last night they had a big show at the Showbox with Spearhead, and my friends and I couldn't go because there were tear gas canisters landing in the alley next to us, and we had to get the heck out of there or the police would have arrested us. I asked, my name is Mark Taylor Canfield.
Permission?
You can use this, yes.
Thank you very much.